So here's the thing about the Galactic Council. They're basically the universe's most elaborate book club, except instead of arguing about whether the ending of some novel made sense, they argue about which species might accidentally blow up the galaxy next. And for the last 40 years, they'd been absolutely obsessed with one particular species. Us, humans, Homo sapiens, the hairless apes from that little blue marble in the corner of the Milky Way. Dr. Clint, the Council's lead xenobiologist, stood before the assembled delegates with the kind of confidence that only comes from 4 decades of research and approximately 0 field experience. Clint was a Valorian, which meant he looked like someone had tried to draw an octopus from memory and gave up halfway through. He had 17 tentacles, 3 of which he used exclusively for dramatic gesturing during presentations. Esteemed council members, Clint announced, his voice translator giving him an unfortunate British accent that nobody had bothered to fix. I am pleased to report that we have successfully catalogued and analyzed every aspect of human combat capability. We are ready for first contact. The council chamber erupted in polite chittering, which is what passes for applause when half your members don't have hands. Clint's chest swelled with pride, or possibly indigestion. With Valorians, it was hard to tell. Our research is comprehensive, he continued, pulling up holographic displays that showed humans doing various human things, punching each other in octagons, shooting guns at paper targets. That one video of a guy doing a backflip kick that the council had watched at least 300 times because nobody could figure out how human spines allowed for that kind of movement. We've calculated their strength, speed, tactical thinking, and capacity for violence. I can say with absolute certainty that we understand the human threat level. In the back of the chamber, junior analyst Pip, who looked like a ferret had merged with the anxiety disorder, raised one small paw. Nobody noticed. Nobody ever noticed, Pip. Therefore, Clint declared, I recommend we send Ambassador Trell to initiate first contact. He has studied human diplomatic protocols extensively and is prepared for any combat scenario these creatures might present. Pip's paw went higher. Still nothing. Any questions? Clint asked, already basking in his inevitable promotion. Pip made a small squeaking sound. No. Excellent. Let's make history, shall we? Dr. Clint's presentation continued with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for people who are about to be proven catastrophically wrong. He cycled through hologram after hologram, each one showing humans engaged in what the council had determined were peak combat scenarios. As you can see here, Clint gestured with 3 tentacles simultaneously. The human male in the octagonal combat zone demonstrates their species' maximum aggression output. Note the grappling techniques, the striking patterns, the strategic positioning. The hologram showed 2 sweaty guys in shorts, basically hugging each other aggressively while a referee watched. We've cataloged every possible move. The council members leaned forward, taking dutiful notes. And here, another hologram flickered to life. Military training exercises. Observe their coordination, their weapon proficiency, their tactical formations. A grainy video showed soldiers running through obstacle courses and yelling things like "hooah," for reasons the council had never quite figured out but assumed were tactically significant. Junior analyst Pip tried again, this time actually standing up. Dr. Clint, if I may. Not now, Pip. We're discussing serious threat assessment. Clint didn't even look back. Now, we've also analyzed their entertainment simulations. Fascinating stuff. These action movies provide excellent insight into human combat psychology. A hologram of someone jumping away from an explosion in slow motion appeared. The council gasped. One delegate fainted. Another started stress molting. We've determined, Clint continued, now in full lecturer mode, that humans operate on a binary aggression scale. They are either in combat mode or diplomatic mode. There is no intermediate state. Our statistical models are quite clear on this. Pip was practically vibrating now. But doctor, I really think you should see. Pip, please. The adults are talking. Clint waved a dismissive tentacle. As I was saying, we've spent 40 years analyzing combat footage. Boxing matches, wrestling, those peculiar competitions where they throw each other through tables for entertainment purposes. We even studied their historical battles. Waterloo, Gettysburg, that time at the Alamo. We understand human warfare completely. Yes, but Pip tried. We've measured their bite force, calculated their running speed, analyzed their endurance capacity. The average human can maintain combat effectiveness for approximately 3 to 4 hours before requiring rest and sustenance. Clint pulled up a chart that looked very scientific and was absolutely useless, as events would soon prove. We've accounted for everything. Pip finally just blurted it out. What about the small ones? The chamber went quiet. Clint's tentacles stopped mid-gesture, frozen in what looked like a very pretentious yoga pose. The small ones? Clint's translator somehow managed to convey the exact tone of someone who definitely heard you but is pretending they didn't because acknowledging you would require admitting they might have missed something. The juvenile humans, Pip said, pulling up their own datapad with trembling paws. I've been collecting footage, birthday parties, shopping centers, something called playgrounds. Sir, I really think we should review juveniles. Clint let out what his species considered a laugh but sounded like a clogged drain clearing. My dear Pip, juveniles are not combatants. They're simply smaller, less developed versions of adult humans. Basic biology. If we understand the adult, we understand the juvenile. It's mathematics. But sir, the footage shows Pip. Clint turned fully now, fixing the junior analyst with all three of his primary eyes. Do you have 40 years of research experience? No, sir. Have you published 17 papers on xenoanthropology? No, sir. Then perhaps trust the process. We've done the math. We've run the simulations. We know exactly what we're dealing with. Clint turned back to the council with theatrical flair. Ambassador Trell departs for Earth tomorrow. I predict first contact will proceed with textbook precision. In the back of the chamber, Pip slowly sat down, clutching their datapad full of ignored footage. Footage of birthday parties that had descended into chaos. Videos of something humans called the Terrible Twos. Clips from grocery stores that looked like war zones. Nobody wanted to see it. They had their 40 years of research. They had their combat analysis. They had their confidence. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. Ambassador Trell prided himself on being prepared for anything. He'd studied Earth customs for 6 months straight. He knew that humans greeted each other by grasping appendages. He understood that showing teeth could mean either friendliness or aggression depending on context, which seemed like a design flaw, but whatever. He'd even practiced saying, "We come in peace," 17,000 times until his translator no longer made it sound like a threat. What he hadn't prepared for was the navigation system crashing 3 minutes before landing. Rerouting to nearest human settlement. His ship's computer announced helpfully, which is what computers always say right before ruining your entire life. Trell's ship touched down with a gentle thump in what his sensors identified as a residential zone. He'd been aiming for Washington, D.C., or possibly the United Nations, or literally anywhere with official government representatives. Instead, he got Maple Street, suburban nowhere, U.S.A., where the biggest political decision of the week was whose turn it was to host book club. The ship's door hissed open. Trell stepped out onto a pristine driveway, his diplomatic robes flowing majestically behind him. He looked like a cross between a very dignified lizard and someone's aunt who wore too much turquoise jewelry. His scales shimmered in the afternoon sunday. This was it. First contact. The moment that would define his career. The front door of the house opened. A human male emerged, holding something called a spatula and wearing an apron that said, "Grill Sergeant." This was Jake Morrison, whose biggest concern 30 seconds ago had been whether the burgers were medium rare or just regular rare. They stared at each other. Said Jake, demonstrating the legendary human diplomatic eloquence that 40 years of research had somehow missed. "Honey, there's a thing on the driveway." Linda Morrison appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked at Trell, looked at the spaceship, looked back at Trell, looked at her husband. "Did you order something weird off Amazon again?" "I am Ambassador Trell of the Galactic Council," Trell announced, launching into his prepared speech with only minor trembling. "I come bearing greetings from the 7,000 civilized species of the—" "Holy crap, Jake, it's talking. I can hear that, Linda. Is this real? Are we being pranked? Is this one of those YouTube things?" Trell pressed on, determined to maintain diplomatic protocol even as his career ambitions slowly died. "We have observed your species for many years and believe the time has come for formal relations between—" "Mom, Dad, there's a dragon on the driveway." A small human appeared between her parents' legs. This was Emma Morrison, age 3 in a war. Half, wearing a princess dress that had seen better days, and holding a stuffed unicorn that looked like it had been through a war. Trell consulted his internal database. Small human, juvenile. Approximately 1 meter tall. Threat level, minimal. All the research said juveniles were just smaller, less capable versions of adults. He had nothing to worry about. Narrator note. Famous last thoughts. "Not a dragon, sweetie," Linda said, though she didn't sound entirely sure. "A visitor? From space? Cool." Emma's eyes went wide. Does he do tricks? I do not do tricks, Trell said with as much dignity as he could muster. I am a diplomatic representative of, does he have toys? Jake and Linda were slowly recovering from their shock, moving into that peculiar human state of adapting to the absolutely bizarre with remarkable speed. It's the same evolutionary trait that lets humans see something horrifying and immediately think, I should film this. Maybe we should. Invite him in? Linda suggested. I mean, he did come all this way. The burgers are going to burn, Jake said, which was somehow his priority in this situation. Forget the burgers, Jake. We're having first contact. Emma, honey, step back and let the nice alien, ambassador, through. Trell followed them inside, carefully documenting everything for his report. Standard human dwelling, furniture designed for creatures with only 4 limbs, primitive but functional technology. Photographs on the walls showing the family unit in various states of happiness. All very standard, all very manageable. Emma followed him, staring with the unblinking intensity that small humans apparently specialized in. What's that? She asked, pointing at the glowing crystalline device attached to Trell's belt. This is my quantum communicator, Trell explained, feeling more confident now. See? Even the juvenile was curious and manageable. It allows me to transmit messages across vast distances of space, instantaneously. Emma's eyes lit up with the kind of desire that should have set off every alarm bell in Trell's highly educated brain. Can I hold it? Oh, I'm afraid not. It's very delicate, and Emma's face began to change. Her lower lip protruded slightly. Her eyes got wider. Her breathing pattern shifted. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked ominously. Jake and Linda both tensed simultaneously, recognizing the signs with the instinct of parents who had been through this before. Emma, sweetie, Linda started. But it was too late. The tantrum had begun. Now, if you've never witnessed a toddler tantrum from the perspective of an alien who has exclusively studied human combat sports, let me paint you a picture. Imagine thinking you understand a species because you've watched their adults punch each other in controlled environments with rules and referees. Then imagine watching a 3-foot-tall chaos demon decide that the laws of physics are merely suggestions. Emma's transformation happened in stages, each one more terrifying than the last. Stage 1. The wind-up. Her face crumpled like someone had paused reality and selectively applied gravity to only her facial features. Her eyes squeezed shut, but somehow tears still escaped, which Trell's biology training told him should be impossible. The whimper that emerged from her tiny body started at a frequency that made his translator glitch. Oh no, Jake whispered, backing away slowly. Code red. Linda confirmed, her voice tight with the resignation of someone who had been here before and knew there was no stopping what came next. Trell looked between the parents and the small human, confused. Is she malfunctioning? Should we contact your medical? Stage 2, the launch sequence. Emma's mouth opened. Trell's sensors measured the intake of breath. His computer helpfully calculated the lung capacity of a juvenile human and determined that the incoming vocalization would be approximately 45 decibels. His computer was wrong by about 70 decibels. The scream that erupted from Emma Morrison violated several laws of thermodynamics. It started low, rose to a pitch that made the windows rattle, held there for what felt like 17 years, and then somehow went higher. Trell's audio receptors automatically dampened, but it wasn't enough. Nothing could be enough. I want the glowy thing. Emma, inside voice, Linda attempted. This is my inside voice. It was not her inside voice. Dogs 3 streets over were losing their minds. Car alarms activated in sympathy. Somewhere, a flock of birds changed migration patterns just to get away from the sound. Stage 3, the physics-defying flailing. This was where Trell's research completely abandoned him. Emma's limbs began moving in patterns that his combat analysis database assured him were impossible for human joints. She spun, she kicked, she windmilled her arms with such force that Trell instinctively activated his personal shield, which he'd been told was overkill for Earth. It was not overkill. A tiny foot connected with his shin. The impact registered on his armor's sensors as a Class 3 strike. From a juvenile, who weighed maybe 15 kilograms. How is she generating that much force? Trell gasped, stumbling backward. Nobody knows, Jake said grimly, trying to grab his daughter and missing as she twisted away with the agility of a caffeinated mongoose. Science can't explain it. Stage 4, the boneless collapse. Emma threw herself onto the floor with the commitment of a stunt performer, her body apparently deciding that skeletal structure was optional. She lay there, thrashing and screaming. her stuffed unicorn flying across the room and hitting a family portrait with sniper-like precision. "I want it! I want it! I want it!" Trell tried to apply his diplomatic training. "Perhaps we could negotiate. You can't negotiate with terrorists," Linda shouted over the screaming, then caught herself. "I mean, with toddlers. You can't negotiate with toddlers." Emma rolled across the floor, somehow picking up speed despite having no clear method of propulsion. She crashed into a coffee table. The coffee table lost. A lamp wobbled precariously, decided life wasn't worth it anymore, and fell over. Stage 5. The impossible endurance. Trell's database said humans could maintain peak combat effectiveness for 3 to 4 hours. Emma had been screaming for what his chronometer insisted was only 4 minutes, but felt like several geological epochs, and she showed no signs of slowing down. If anything, she was getting louder. "Give me the glowy thing, or I'll scream forever." "You're already screaming forever," Jake called out, ducking as a throw pillow somehow achieved flight. Trell's training, his 40 years of research, his entire understanding of human capability, all of it crumbled like a sandcastle in a tsunami. This small human, this supposedly non-threatening juvenile, had generated more sustained chaos in 5 minutes than the combat footage showed adult humans producing in hours. "She's just tired," Linda offered weakly, trying to grab Emma and missing again. "She missed her nap. This is what happens when she's tired?" Trell's voice reached a pitch his species didn't normally achieve outside of mating season or predator warnings. Emma paused her screaming just long enough to lock eyes with Trell. In that moment, he saw something that his research had never prepared him for. Not malice, not even anger, just pure, undiluted, uncompromising determination. This tiny human wanted the glowy thing, and she would tear apart the fabric of space-time itself to get it. Then she took another breath. "No," Trell whispered. "No, that's not possible. Her lungs can't." The second scream somehow made the first one seem like a practice run. It rattled Trell's bones, scrambled his thoughts, and made him question every life choice that had led to this moment. His hand moved to his communicator on pure instinct, fingers flying across the controls with the desperate speed of someone calling for an extraction from a hot zone. "Command, this is Trell. Emergency transmission. First contact has gone catastrophically wrong. Requesting immediate evacuation. Repeat, immediate evacuation. They have weapons we didn't account for. The juveniles. Oh stars, the juveniles." Emma launched herself at his legs again, her tiny fists pounding against his shielded armor with the rhythm of a particularly aggressive drum solo. "I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it." Through his ship's view screen, still parked in the driveway, Trell could see neighbors emerging from their houses, drawn by the commotion. But they weren't alarmed. They were nodding knowingly. One of them yelled, "Terrible threes, huh?" Another gave Jake a sympathetic thumbs up. This was normal. This was a regular occurrence. The humans had somehow normalized this level of chaos. Trell felt his sanity beginning to crack. "She just wants to hold it for a second," Linda suggested, having to yell over Emma's continued screaming. "If I give it to her, she'll break it." "Oh, absolutely," Jake agreed. 100% she'll break it." "Then why would I Because it's faster than waiting for the tantrum to end naturally," Linda explained with the weary wisdom of someone who had learned this lesson the hard way. Ambassador Trell, decorated diplomat, graduate of the finest Xenorelations Academy in the galaxy, and author of 3 papers on human behavioral patterns, made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He handed Emma the communicator. She stopped screaming immediately, her face transforming from rage demon back to cherubic toddler in less than a second. She smiled at him sweetly, clutching the glowing device. "Thank you," she said politely. Then she dropped it on the floor and wandered off to watch cartoons. The emergency broadcast signal hit the council chamber like a meteor strike during a meditation retreat. Red lights flashed, alarms blared in 17 different frequency ranges to accommodate various species' hearing capabilities. Council members who had been enjoying a nice lunch break suddenly found themselves choking on their space sandwiches and rushing back to their stations. Dr. Klent materialized at his console, 3 tentacles already reaching for controls before his other 14 had fully caught up. "What's happening? Trell, report. Are the humans attacking? Did they deploy their military forces?" Trell's voice came through the speakers, and if voices could have PTSD, his would be in intensive therapy. Worse. So much worse. The main view screen flickered to life, showing live feed from Trell's optical implants. The council found themselves staring at a human living room that looked like a small bomb had redecorated it. Furniture askew, lamp on the floor, throw pillows scattered like casualties, and in the center of it all, a tiny human in a princess dress. completely calm now, watching something called Paw Patrol while holding Trell's shattered communicator like a trophy. I don't understand, Clent said slowly, his confidence from earlier developing some serious cracks. That's a juvenile. They're non-threatening. Our research clearly indicated. Your research indicated nothing. Trell's scream made several council members jump. I've seen combat footage. I've watched your training simulations. None of it prepared me for what I just experienced. 4. Trell, calm yourself. You're being irrational. It's just a small human. What could it possibly have? She generated a sustained sonic attack for 7 minutes straight. 7 minutes! No breaks. No decrease in intensity. The adult humans said this was normal. A nervous chirping sound came from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to see Junior Analyst Pip, standing on their chair, holding up their datapad with both paws and what could only be described as the most intense, I told you so energy in the history of the galaxy. The footage, Pip squeaked. The footage I tried to show you. Clent's face, or what passed for a face in his species, went through several colors that usually only appeared in toxic waste warnings. Pip, this is hardly the time. Show them, Pip, commanded Council Elder Vesh, whose species had survived 14 extinction events and recognized the tone of someone who had been absolutely correct about something important. Now, with trembling paws but undeniable satisfaction, Pip pulled up their compiled footage. The chamber's main display screen split into dozens of smaller windows, each one showing a different scene of juvenile human chaos. Window 1, a human grocery store. A small human, maybe 4 Earth years old, lying on the floor in the cereal aisle, screaming about the wrong cartoon character on the box. The parent looked dead inside. Other shoppers stepped around the child like this was as normal as rain. Window 2, a birthday party. 15 juveniles, all hopped up on something the readout identified as sugar. They were running in patterns that defied tactical analysis, screaming for no identifiable reason. One was crying because another one looked at them wrong. 2 were fighting over a toy that neither of them had been playing with 30 seconds earlier. An adult human stood in the corner, drinking wine straight from the bottle. Window 3, a playground. Multiple juveniles engaged in what could only be described as voluntary combat training. They were climbing structures that would challenge adult humans, hanging upside down from bars, launching themselves off swings at velocities that should require safety equipment. One fell off a slide, cried for exactly 10 seconds, then ran back to do it again. Dear gods, whispered Council Member Thexlar, who had personally fought in 3 wars and was visibly shaken. Window 4. Something called a restaurant. A juvenile, perhaps 2 Earth years old, systematically throwing food on the floor. Not in anger, just to see what would happen. Testing gravity. The parents were trying to have a conversation while intercepting flying pasta. They looked like air traffic controllers at a failing airport. Keep watching, Pip said, their voice gaining strength. It gets worse. Window 5 showed a phenomenon the humans called bedtime. A juvenile who had been falling asleep in her high chair during dinner was now, an hour later, running laps around a bedroom with the sustained energy of a fusion reactor. She was singing at the top of her lungs, demanding water, claiming she wasn't tired despite her eyes being at half-mast. The parents sat outside the room, head in hands, questioning every life choice. Clent's tentacles had gone limp. This can't be standard behavior. These must be malfunctions. Defective units. That's what I thought too, Pip said, pulling up more data. So I cross-referenced with human databases, forums, parenting guides, medical literature. Dr. Clint, this is normal. This is what human juveniles do. All of them. For years. The council chamber erupted in panicked chittering, squawking, and various species-specific sounds of distress. But the combat footage, Clint stammered, grasping at the remains of his credibility. The adults are so controlled, so strategic. Because they survived this phase. Pip pulled up a comparison chart. Look, human adults can maintain peak combat for 3 to 4 hours. Human toddlers, as they call them, can maintain peak chaos for up to 16 hours with only minimal rest periods. Their emotional regulation is non-existent. Their pain tolerance is somehow both incredibly high and incredibly low simultaneously. They can cry because their sock is wet and then fall off a climbing structure and laugh about it. Elder Vesh leaned forward, her ancient eyes studying the footage with the intensity of someone, recalculating everything they thought they knew. How long does this phase last? Pip consulted their notes. Current data suggests it peaks between ages 2 and 4 Earth years, with residual effects lasting until age 5 or 6. Some humans report extended chaos periods through age 7. One subset called teenagers shows a resurgence of unpredictable behavior around age 13 that lasts until roughly age 20. So they're dangerous for 20 years? Someone shouted from the back. No, Pip corrected. They're only physically chaotic for about 7 years. Then they become emotionally chaotic. Different threat vector. Back on the view screen, Trell was sitting on the floor of the Morrison house, his diplomatic robes rumpled, his dignity in tatters. Jake was offering him what appeared to be an alcoholic beverage. Linda was trying to retrieve the broken communicator from Emma, who was now using it as a doll accessory. Trell, Elder Vesh addressed him directly. In your professional assessment, what is the threat level? Trell looked up at the camera, his eyes haunted. Elder Vesh, I watched a 15-kilogram human generate more sustained destructive energy than a platoon of Krillian shock troops. She didn't use weapons. She didn't use tactics. She just decided she wanted something and was willing to tear apart reality itself to get it. And when it was over, she just stopped, like flipping a switch. Went back to being adorable. Adorable? Clint echoed weakly. That's the worst part, Trell's voice cracked. Look at her. She's cute. The humans have evolved to make their most dangerous phase, also their most appealing. It's diabolical. It's the perfect survival mechanism. You can't eliminate the threat because your own biology is screaming at you to protect it. Council member Zarax, a military strategist with 400 years of experience, spoke up. So what you're telling us is that humans start at maximum chaos, and then gradually develop restraint and control as they age? Exactly, Pip confirmed. They don't train their warriors to be dangerous. They train them to be less dangerous than they naturally are. Every human adult has survived their own chaos phase and learned to control it. The military doesn't teach them to fight. It teaches them when to fight. The implications settled over the council like a heavy blanket made of pure dread. We've been analyzing the endpoint, Clint whispered, his 40 years of research crumbling before his eyes. We should have been analyzing the starting point. I tried to tell you, Pip said, but there was no smugness in it now. Just the weary tone of someone who had seen this coming and took no pleasure in being right. Elder Vesh stood, her decision-making tentacles extending fully in the gesture that meant an official ruling was incoming. New directive, effective immediately. Earth is to be classified as a Category 7 unpredictable zone. First contact protocols are suspended pending further research. All diplomatic missions must avoid residential areas, particularly those containing juvenile humans. Ambassador Trell is hereby granted 6 months of paid therapy leave. Make it a year, Trell called from Earth. I'm going to need a year. Granted. Clint slumped at his console, watching the footage on repeat. Emma Morrison, age 3.5, terror of the galaxy, had just discovered she could fit grapes up her nose and was testing this discovery with scientific rigor while her parents frantically tried to stop her. How did we miss this? He whispered. Pip sat down next to him, their earlier satisfaction fading into something like pity. You assumed the adults were the baseline. Classic xenobiology error. You forgot to account for development stages. 40 years, Clint said hollowly. 40 years of research. Useless. Not useless, Pip corrected gently. Just incomplete. Now we know. Humans don't become dangerous. They become controlled. There's a difference. On Earth, Emma had tired of the grape experiment and was now demanding ice cream despite it being 4:47 p.m., which her parents insisted was not ice cream time. The pre-tantrum warning signs were beginning again. Trell stood up quickly. I need to leave. Now. Immediately. This instant. She's just asking for ice cream, Jake said. I recognize the tone, Trell said, backing toward the door. I've been trained now. That's the same tone from before. The incident. Oh, it's definitely the same tone, Linda confirmed. Emma, sweetie, we talked about this. But Trell was already out the door, practically running to his ship. The council watched through his camera feed as he achieved liftoff in record time, breaking probably 15 different aviation regulations in his haste to escape. As his ship cleared the atmosphere, Elder Vesh turned to the assembled council. We need a new research team, a bigger one, and someone find out if humans have any parenting guides we can study. If their entire species survives this phase, they must have strategies. Pip pulled up a human database. They have millions of parenting guides. Most of them contradict each other. The most common advice appears to be, choose your battles, and it's just a phase. That's their strategy? Just waiting it out? Apparently. Also something called wine o'clock. The council sat in silence, processing this information. Somewhere on Earth, Millions of juvenile humans were simultaneously testing boundaries, defying physics, and generally being adorable chaos agents. And humanity had not only survived this, they'd thrived. They'd conquered their planet, developed space travel, and built a civilization, all while every single one of them started life as a tiny tyrant. Terrifying, Elder Vesh said finally. Absolutely terrifying. Should we still pursue first contact? Someone asked. Elder Vesh looked at the screen, where Emma Morrison had successfully negotiated ice cream by using tactics that would make a hostage negotiator weep. Eventually. But next time we're sending someone with actual parenting experience. And possibly body armor. Clint was still staring at his ruined research. 40 years of work that had missed the single most important fact about humanity. Junior analyst Pip patted his tentacles sympathetically. Hey, Pip said. Look at the bright side. At least now you know why humans are so good at conflict resolution. They've been practicing since they were 2. It was not, in fact, a bright side. But it was something. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council reconvened for what would go down in history as the most paranoid legislative session ever recorded. The chamber was packed. Word had spread across the galaxy about the Earth incident, and every species with even a passing interest in xenobiology wanted to hear the official ruling. Elder Vesh presided over the assembly with the gravitas of someone who had personally watched the Tantrum footage approximately 400 times and still couldn't quite believe it was real. She'd even shown it to her own offspring, who had responded with variations of, "Yeah, that tracks," and "humans are wild," which didn't help her anxiety at all. "Order," she called, her translation matrix amplifying her voice across the chamber. "We are here to formalize new protocols regarding Earth and its human inhabitants following the, educational first contact experience." In the back row, Ambassador Trell sat wrapped in what could only be described as a very fancy blanket, clutching a beverage the humans had introduced him to called chamomile tea. His therapist, a Centaurian empath named Dr. Rel, sat beside him, tentacles poised to provide emotional support at the first sign of distress. Trell had been making progress. He could now hear the word toddler without immediately diving under furniture. Mostly, Dr. Clint was also present, looking significantly humbler than he had 3 weeks ago. 40 years of research hadn't prepared him for the reality of human development, and he'd spent the past 21 days rebuilding his entire theoretical framework from scratch. He'd also received 17,000 messages from other xenobiologists, ranging from, "I told you to study the juveniles," to, "This is why we don't skip developmental psychology in grad school." Junior analyst Pip, meanwhile, had been promoted to senior analyst Pip and was currently fielding interview requests from every major research institution in the galaxy. Turns out being catastrophically right about something important is excellent for your career trajectory. "First item of business," Elder Vesh announced. "Official classification of Earth and humanity. The floor recognizes Dr. Clint." Clint stood, his tentacles arranged in the formal configuration of academic humility, which is like regular humility but with more footnotes. "Esteemed Council, after extensive review of all available data, including the considerable footage that Senior Analyst Pip compiled, I propose Earth be classified as a Category 7 unpredictable zone, with the subcategory designation of adorable but terrifying." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "The designation," Clint continued, his voice steadier now, "reflects both the genuine danger posed by juvenile humans and the evolutionary countermeasure that makes them, quote, so cute you can't stay mad at them, end quote." This is from human literature, specifically a parenting manual titled, "Why Does My Toddler Hate Me But Also Want to Be Held Constantly?" "That's a real title?" Someone called out. "Humans have thousands of parenting books with titles like that. Go the heck to sleep. Toddlers are jerks. The happy sleeper. But my kid isn't sleeping." It appears their coping mechanism for raising juveniles involves both humor and barely suppressed panic. Elder Vesh nodded. "The designation is noted. Next item. Revised. First contact protocols." A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing a detailed map of Earth with various colored zones. Most of it was yellow. A concerning amount was red. Pip stood to present, their voice carrying the confidence of someone who'd been vindicated by chaos. "Based on human population data, we've identified high-risk zones for first contact. Red zones indicate areas with statistically high concentrations of juveniles, playgrounds, elementary schools, pediatric medical facilities, and something called Disneyland, which appears to be a contained chaos dimension that humans voluntarily enter." "Why would they do that?" Council member Thexlar asked, genuinely baffled. The research suggests it makes the juveniles happy, which temporarily reduces home-based chaos levels. It's a calculated trade-off. Fascinating. Terrifying, but fascinating. Pip continued. Yellow zones are moderate risk. Residential neighborhoods, shopping centers, restaurants, basically anywhere humans engage in daily activities. Green zones are relatively safe. Government buildings during business hours, universities, certain designated adult spaces. However, we stress that no zone is completely safe. Humans transport their juveniles extensively. One could appear anywhere, at any time. The council absorbed this with visible unease. Several members were taking notes. One was stress-eating something that looked like crystallized anxiety. Revised Protocol Number 1. Elder Vesh read from the official document. All first contact attempts must be coordinated with human government authorities who can ensure a juvenile-free environment. No more surprise landings in residential areas. Trell let out a small whimper at the memory. Dr. Rell patted him supportively. Protocol Number 2. All diplomats assigned to Earth must complete mandatory training on human juvenile behavior. This includes viewing no less than 50 hours of documentary footage, reading, assigned human parenting literature, and passing a written examination on developmental psychology. 50 hours? Someone protested. That seems excessive. Pip pulled up a new video clip. It showed a juvenile human, maybe 18 months old, having what the humans called a meltdown, because their parent had the audacity to prevent them from eating dog food. The tantrum included back-arching, full-body thrashing, and a level of commitment to the performance that would make a method actor jealous. Still think it's excessive? Pip asked mildly. No further objections were raised. Protocol Number 3. Elder Vesh continued. All Earthbound diplomatic missions must include at least one team member with prior parenting experience from any species, preferably someone whose species also has chaotic juveniles. That would be us, spoke up Delegate Morich of the Zillion Hive. Our larvae go through a phase where they secrete acid and try to eat their siblings. We've got relevant experience. Excellent. Your expertise will be invaluable. Protocol Number 4. Emergency extraction procedures must be established before any landing. If a juvenile human approaches the contact zone, immediate retreat is authorized with no diplomatic penalties. That seems cowardly, muttered someone who clearly hadn't watched the footage. Pip helpfully pulled up another clip. This one showed a human parent trying to leave a park. The juvenile, upon learning it was time to go, had gone completely boneless, making themselves impossible to carry while simultaneously increasing their mass through what could only be described as physics-defying determination. The parent eventually resorted to dragging the child by one leg, while the juvenile screamed about the injustice of it all. Anyone else have concerns about Protocol 4? Elder Vesh asked. Silence. Moving on. Protocol 5. Establish a database of human juvenile warning signs. Senior Analyst Pip, you're heading this project. Pip pulled up a presentation they'd clearly been preparing for weeks. We've identified several critical warning indicators. The lip wobble, lower lip protrudes, tears imminent. You have approximately 10 seconds to de-escalate. The death grip. Juvenile clutches desired object with strength disproportionate to body size. Do not attempt removal. The overtired paradox. Juvenile is clearly exhausted, but will fight sleep with the determination of a warrior facing their final battle. The hungry but will refuse all food phenomenon. How many warning signs are there? Elder Vesh interrupted. We're currently at 247, but humans keep adding to the list. Apparently, there's something called the three-nager phase that's distinct from the terrible twos, and don't even get me started on tweens. A collective shudder ran through the y'all. Council, Dr. Klent raised a tentacle. If I may add to the database, the post-tantrum switch, the juvenile can go from catastrophic meltdown to perfect calm in seconds. This is not a sign they've recovered. This is a sign they're recharging. Noted, Pip said, typing rapidly. Anything else? The snack demands. They're never actually hungry. It's a power play. Trell spoke up for the first time, his voice hoarse but determined. The bedtime negotiations. They have more energy at bedtime than any other time of day. It defies conservation of energy. I checked, also noted. Elder Vesh looked at the assembled council, seeing species from across the galaxy united in their newfound respect and terror of human juveniles. Final item, public advisory statement. How should we inform the galaxy about Earth? There was a long pause while everyone considered how to phrase, humans start life as chaos demons and gradually become rational in diplomatic language. Finally, Klent spoke. I propose we be honest. Earth is home to a species that has conquered their planet not despite their challenging juvenile phase, but perhaps because of it. Every human adult has survived years of negotiating with tiny tyrants, managing impossible situations, and functioning on minimal sleep while maintaining sanity. This makes them resilient, adaptable, and uniquely equipped for crisis management. Also terrifying, someone added. Also terrifying, Clint agreed. But consider this. If humans can successfully raise their juveniles to adulthood, surviving against odds that would break most species, what else can they handle? Perhaps they're not dangerous because they're violent. Perhaps they're dangerous because they're unbreakable. The council sat with that thought for a moment. Elder Vesh nodded slowly. A fair assessment. Official statement will read, Earth and humanity are classified as unpredictable but promising. Approach with caution, respect, and ideally noise-canceling technology. Current status. Worthy of alliance but require understanding of unique developmental challenges. First contact postponed until proper protocols are established and all diplomats are properly trained. Estimated timeline, 5 to 7 years. Why so long? Someone asked. Because, Pip said, pulling up one final video clip, we need to study more. Much more. This is footage of something humans call twin toddlers. The video showed two identical juvenile humans, perhaps 2 years old, working in perfect synchronization to climb on top of the refrigerator while their parent was in the bathroom for exactly 90 seconds. They moved like highly trained operatives. They problem-solved in real time. They achieved their objective and were eating cookies on top of the refrigerator by the time the parent returned. There are multiples? Thexlar whispered in horror. Sometimes up to 8 at once, Pip confirmed. Humans call them octuplets. There's a whole television series about it. Why would they televise that? We're still trying to figure that out. Elder Vesh closed the session with a ceremonial chime. This council is adjourned. All protocols are hereby official. Earth shall remain under observation, and we shall reconvene when we have successfully trained a diplomatic corps capable of handling first contact. May the stars have mercy on us all. As the council members filed out, chattering nervously about the implications, Trell remained seated, staring at the now blank display where Emma Morrison's Tantrum had played on loop so many times. Dr. Rell leaned over. How are you feeling, Ambassador? Trell thought about it. Traumatized, educated, strangely hopeful. Hopeful? Any species that survives childhood like that and still manages to build civilization? They're either insane or incredible. Possibly both. He stood up, straightening his diplomatic robes. When we do make proper first contact, I want to be there. But next time, I'm bringing snacks. Apparently that's important. Across the chamber, Clint was reviewing his notes with Pip. You know, he said thoughtfully, in a way, humans have been preparing for galactic diplomacy their entire lives. Every negotiation with a toddler is training for interspecies relations. Every bedtime routine is practice in patience and strategic thinking. Every grocery store trip with a juvenile is a lesson in maintaining composure under extreme stress. Pip nodded. They're basically all diplomats. They just don't know it yet. Should we tell them? Maybe in 5 to 7 years. When we're ready. When they're ready, you mean? No, Pip said, pulling up another video of a toddler screaming because their sandwich was cut into rectangles instead of triangles. I mean, when we're ready. They're already ready. They've been ready. We're the ones who need to catch up. And so the galaxy learned its lesson. Earth was classified. Protocols were established. Training programs were developed. And somewhere in the Milky Way, Emma Morrison was starting preschool, where she would be someone else's problem for 6 hours a day, giving Jake and Linda Morrison the first break they'd had in 3.5 years. The galaxy would eventually make proper first contact with humanity. They'd establish diplomatic relations, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and all the things that came with joining the galactic community. But they'd do it carefully, respectfully, and most importantly, during school hours. Because the Galactic Council had learned the most important rule about humanity: never underestimate a species that starts every life as a tiny chaos agent and somehow turns that into a survival trait. Humans didn't conquer their world through strength alone. They did it through surviving their own children. And honestly, that was more impressive than any weapon, any technology, or any military might they could ever develop. The real human superpower wasn't violence. It was patience. Patience, resilience, and an apparently infinite capacity to function on 3 hours of sleep and cold coffee while negotiating with terrorists who just wanted the wrong cup and would burn down everything you loved to get it. The galaxy was terrified. The galaxy was impressed. and the galaxy would never, ever take parenting for granted again.